Hey guys, it's Vince. Today in this video we're going to be taking a look at a past client system that has finally gotten finished after this client's actually worked on this for quite some time. I believe it's in excess of 3 months to get finished. And although, and I get told this a lot, oh, you know, they don't look that complex, I should be able to do this really quick. And the thing is, it depends on what you're doing, once again, and what the build quality is that you accept. And when I say that, when I talk about doing soldering and on all the joints and then going through and installing everything without daisy chaining like you see here with all of the terminal splitters, this takes an inordinate amount of time, especially since each lead is cut custom to the specific length you see here before you to create the controller. Now, this actual past client's name is Matt. He's an engineer, and we worked for some time. I've supplied virtually all of his components, minus the power supplies, this breakout board, the Raptors. But other than that, a lot of these components were sourced by me. And again, we went through, I've answered his questions, and this is his final object, so to speak, as far as how the controller has turned out. And I personally think it's one of the best I've seen. You can see here his GX16s have not been all mounted yet, but he's finishing her up. He does have a cyclonic fan action, which once again, you can see these are toollessly mounted. We have the fan intake once again and the fan exhaust, so we get a circulatory effect inside the system. And one of the issues Matt was having that we've just covered is that he's using multiple power supplies because he has 5 Raptor drives from Gecko. Now, the thing you have to keep in mind is that if you're using multiple power supplies, and I'm not a big fan of it, and Matt knows it, I'm not a big fan of it because, again, we can isolate using a single power supply if we're utilizing a power supply with the right amount of amps. And when I say that, a lot of guys see these systems from China coming over and they'll have 2, 3, 4 power supplies. Every time you add a power supply, you're adding more electromagnetic interference to your system. I've said it numerous times. The ultimate goal here is to have one power supply with a large enough amp resource that you can once again power all of your drives, all of your system, and the least amount of power supplies the better. The least amount of power supplies, less EMI, more overall system stability. So what we have here is these 10 amp 48 volt power supplies, and he was running 2 of these. He's got his 24 volt here, and the 24 volt I believe is coming over here and feeding our breakout board Ethernet controller. You can see if we zoom in how he has his power distribution unit set up going to the breakout board. Everything here is done without daisy chaining. And Matt will tell you, be the first to tell you, this takes time to do. And he's experienced it for himself. And I'm glad he did because, again, seeing a system done correctly that I didn't build and seeing the time that it takes, and then we come over here and you can see his ground bus. All of his grounds are in here, and then he actually needed another ground bus. So you can see what he did. He just ran a lead over, extended it over to the other bus, and now he has an extension to that ground bus, so he can add as many ground buses as he would like safely. Again, looking at this, and you see the amount of detail put into connecting, once again, power leads. None of these are daisy chained. Everything here has its own lead coming over to the Raptors. You could see the ferrites, proper spacing on the ferrites. Again, large, actually these are very large ferrites. He's grouping the wires together, and again, spaced out properly right here, here. And again, it looks like he has a nice mount here for the ferrites. I love that. Keep everything nice and neat. And you notice, and this is something I really want to discuss, there's no actual channels for the wires like you see on so many systems. And I've said this in past videos. I prefer a system set up this way. And the reason I do is if he has to service anything, it's right here. He's not digging in wires and channeling, having to remove the channels. It's a pain. He does have the DIN mounts for the power supplies, but overall, you can see how clean and easy this is to service. Everything is exposed. So if he needs to check a wire, check a lead, where does this go, where does that go, he's set to go. He does have an EMI filter here I provided him. He's got his terminal splitter for his AC side. You can see these are available in my store, of course, ground, neutral, live. Everything here is labeled, very simple. He allocated correct colors on his actual leads, and he's set to go. There's nothing here that's complex. Now, the issue he was having was that his power supplies running at 10 amps each were not supplying the Raptors enough power in the sense that they were stable. Apparently he'd have a couple drives running, then he'd get one drive would fault, and a couple other drives would be running, and it'd be happening at random. Okay? What we figured out is after he explained to me that he connected the power supplies in parallel. A lot of manufacturers allow that, where you can connect the power supplies to incorporate basically one giant power supply with more amps, just to keep it in layman's terms for you guys just getting involved in this genre. The thing is, and I explained this to Matt, is that a lot of these vendors, Meanwell included, which Meanwell is an excellent brand of power supply, they do not incorporate you using these power supplies for robotics because they're not designed specifically for robotics. Now the issue with that is if you start connecting them in parallel, like you would be for a general DC application, the potential for you to have issues is dramatic, mainly because stepper drives have EMF. And EMF is basically back electrical current from the stepper motors, because a stepper motor, when it's braking, essentially is putting current back into the drive, which then is dissipated into the power supply. So what can potentially happen if the power supply is not designed for CNC use or does not have the capacity to dissipate that extra energy, you can find that your system will become unstable, or the drives become unstable due to that back EMF. Now, does it happen often? Very, very seldom is this a problem. The thing to keep in mind is this. The more drives you have connected, the EMF has an ability to dissipate through the drives that are connected and also the motors that are connected. Any device pulling energy is going to help dissipate the EMF. But, once again, if there's a large amount, it can definitely destabilize the system and cause havoc, once again, without you determining specifically what the problem is. And the only way to really determine it, we went through and we analyzed the system, and after he told me about the parallel issue, I told him to go back and connect one power supply to actually a couple of the drives and see if the actual issue would be resolved. And it was. Marcus at Gecko Drive, he also spoke to, and Marcus felt that he did not have enough power for the drives. So again, it's basically, I feel and he feels, I think we're on the same page, that it's probably a little of each. I would not be running parallel power supplies at all. Always run a single power supply with enough amps. That'll also make your troubleshooting much easier. Again, he would eliminate having to troubleshoot 1-2 power supplies, where he'd just have one power supply and say, okay, maybe this isn't enough power. I can just swap out one power supply and be done. In this instance, you have two. And for as many as you have, that's how many issues you could potentially have in troubleshooting. Okay? So, once again, Marcus did explain that he may be running into basically a power reduced issue where he feels that there's just not enough power available for the drives. And thank God, after going through troubleshooting, he was able to rectify it. And once he, ordered another power supply, and he's getting a situation set up to where now one power supply will be powering a small amount of drives, the other power supply will be powering another small amount of drives, and everything will be set. The thing to keep in mind, guys, is this. Not only is this system awesome to look at, but it's very easy to troubleshoot. And I cannot emphasize this enough. Many guys feel, and they kind of forget, we don't really discuss it, that building a system is only easy for those that understand how to actually handle any troubleshooting. And I want you to really think about that. If you're a person that cannot troubleshoot because you don't understand that capacity of the build, you essentially are helpless. Now, when I say that, it's something to really think about, especially who you're purchasing from if they're not there to support you, but also to think about your own capacity at which to learn what you're really taking on as an endeavor. These electronic projects, these are precision electronics. A lot of guys feel, and again, in the 90s, it was really big to build your own computer. That was like the big thing back then. Many of you guys realize what I'm talking about. If you're, born after that, many of you have not seen that era, but I'm going to tell you right now, we went through this phase where building a computer from Newegg and other sites was huge. Everybody was doing it. But what was really interesting was it wasn't the guys who bought the parts to screw them together to plug it in and say it's a computer that makes you a PC builder. It's the guy who does the same thing, buys the parts, assembles it, and then encounters a problem and is able to go back and troubleshoot that exact problem. That's when you find out what experience you have. Screwing stuff together, making it look nice, that's great. But if you can't troubleshoot the system and put together a formula for troubleshooting, really analyze what you're getting involved with. Because CNC projects are not just based on the electronic hardware. They're based on understanding the knowledge of a PC, the knowledge of the software used with the PC. That means Windows-based operating systems. That also means CAM software, whatever brand that may be. That also means Mach 3 or whatever motion control software you're using, Pneumatics, Centroid, UC CNC, whatever actual software you're using, all of that comes into play. And when you put those variables all together on top of the mechanics of the robot, on top of EMI and unseen forces that work against you, and you having the ability to troubleshoot all that, think about those variables. Think about those variables when you realize that you reach out to someone like myself and you get a quote and you expect, once again, you need help, and I'll get a short one-sentence thing that, hey, you know, I need this. My system's unstable. I've done everything I can do. I really want to schedule a consultation. Well, okay. There is no way a one-sentence email or a one-sentence determination of your analysis is going to help me decide anything. And I really want you guys to understand that. I want you guys to understand the depth and how deep down the rabbit hole this goes when systems have problems. See, the beauty of working on a system that I've helped create, especially in this particular instance where, once again, the end user took his time, he did everything to the best of his ability, he wasn't in a rush, he used all quality components, all name brand stuff with support from the manufacturers as well as support from me, a vendor. It makes this process go much smoother, you know. When you think in terms of ordering overseas and ordering from ungodly sources in terms of, well, I'm ordering direct from the factory, okay, you're going to save a lot of money, that's true. But you better make sure, once again, you have all that knowledge, because you can't have it both ways. You're not going to get it cheap and be able to say, well, I got it cheap and I can get all the support I want. They're not going to give you support. I already know it. Many of the guys out there already know it. And if you look at the forums, which online are overpopulated with guys just simply posting question after question, you'll realize too that most of these questions come from guys buying stuff that they simply don't understand. And when I say that, know what you're getting involved with. I cannot tell you how many guys I do consultations with on the phone who are wanting me to retrofit or build a system, and they don't even know what software they need. Think about that. How ironic is that? How ironic is it that you want me to build you a system, but you don't even understand the software that is required to run the system? I mean, if in the event I sell you the system and you move forward with the purchase, what's the odds of you being able to even understand how that software works and actually correlates with the system? How are you going to be able to troubleshoot that? So then the thing comes, and this is a question I want you guys to ask yourself. If you do encounter that, which many of you will, even non-novices encounter it daily, do you have the pocketbook to support paying for that help to get you where you need to be? Because whether you go to college or whether you pay someone like myself to go through, engineer the system, and help engineer your mentality, so to speak, around operating it, you're going to pay one way or another. The question is how do you want to go about it? Do you want to go about it when you've already spent a lot of money and you're looking back and you're like, hey, I wish I would have just done it this way? Or would you like to look at it in the sense that I really want to understand what I'm getting involved with? I'll sit on his channel and I'll watch every video as many times as it takes for me to have a good, thorough understanding of what I'm getting involved with. Now, Matt took months to put this system together. And the reason I highlight months to you guys is a lot of you don't take that into consideration. You look at a couple wires here and there and you say, oh, it's not that big a deal. It's a big deal when you're trying to really understand the gravity of what you're assembling. And it's a big deal when you do encounter something like he did and reached out and said, man, there's a lot to this. What do you think of this? And Matt openly said, hey, I'll gladly pay you. And I get that a lot. I get guys that'll say, hey, I'll gladly pay you. That's never usually the issue under most accounts. What is the issue is when they say, well, God, I didn't realize it'd be that expensive. It's expensive because it takes me time to understand what you're doing. I'm not there with you. If you bought a car, or I should say, if you bought parts for a car and assembled it yourself and decided to take it over to Chevy to have them analyze it out of parts you built, if they would even do that, think about the amount of time that would take to do that. Think of every working part in a car, think of everything. Even if you could isolate where the problem is, it's still going to cost an inordinate amount of time and money. So keep in mind, and I've said this before, look at the problem you're asking me to solve and then quantify that with my value. Because the way I look at it is this: the robots I produce are made for business use. I don't produce robots that I call hobby robots. That's up to the end user to decide. Every robot I produce is produced to give you guys the final result that it's a precision machine. And in order to be precise, in order to have that repeatability, that's what you're paying for. That's what Matt built here. That's what many of you are going after. And that means that you have to quantify all of that. You should be looking at that right from the beginning, right from when you say, man, this is so interesting, I want to get involved in this. And I'm excited for you. I think it's great that many of you have that passion, but you have to look deeper than just saying, I can buy these parts and assemble this. I watched 5 YouTube videos and I'm ready to go. I have a good understanding. I'm just learning how to solder and I think I'll take this on. So many variables to assembling a stable system. If you really think about it, how many guys do you know, and I'm just being open, how many guys do you know say, I bought an IDS system, which is what we have here, individual drive system for my new guys. You can see all the individual Raptor drives. How many guys do you know assemble an IDS system from scratch and have no problems? Have it just to where it turns on and goes. You get better as the more you do it. But if you're only doing one, or you've never done any, you're going to find that the problems that exist exacerbate. Because usually what it is you're lost. Now you've spent all this money, all this time. You have usually your better half breathing down your neck because she's wondering what the hell you're doing, trying to figure this out. You should have understood what you bought. I've heard it numerous times. And actually she's right. I mean, many of us know she's right. And that's why I say, look at what you're getting involved in. You're really eating a big elephant with a lot of variables. If you're not strong with the computer, you don't understand Windows, rethink getting involved with this right away. Take some computer classes. If you're not sure of proper grounding techniques, if you're not understanding the hardware required for CNC, spend a couple months, couple weeks, depending on your time frame, really understanding what's out there. YouTube's got a lot of good general videos. It's when they come to the builds, you got to be kind of careful, but as far as general videos, I cover grounding all over my channel. It's probably one of the biggest topics I've covered. I still get asked about it daily. Again, Matt did a great job here with the ground bus bars isolated mounted. You can see everything coming over here. It's very, very simple to come over here and say, okay, there's his grounds. If I want to see his grounds on his system, look at how easy this is. There's his ground leads, everything coming over, done. Okay, many systems aren't even close to that. You have to go in and dig, and then they have all the cable channeling, and you have to figure out, okay, what's inside the cable channeling? Oh, well, I've got to go back and trace everything. It's going to take some time. Well, if it's going to take you time, it's certainly going to take me a hell of a lot more. So think about what I'm telling you. Think about the variables involved. You are building a robot, whether it's for production, whether it's for your own joy, whether it's for you to do rapid motions on YouTube and film videos, whatever it may be, that's what you're doing. So look at all of the variables that you have to have a good, thorough understanding of. And when I say that, not just the theory of putting it together, not just the theory of screwing everything in, but what happens if one of these wires somewhere in this system, out of all these, we'll say maybe a good 100 wires here, what if one of these is wrong? What if something is connected wrong? Every wire you add adds another variable. Every component you add adds another variable. Software, computers, operating systems, you name it. EMI, the chassis. Where do we want to end? You know, stepper motors, whatever motor you're using to automate the system. All of these variables have to be in harmony to give you a stable robot. And I want to bring this to light because vendors don't. They're not going to tell you this. They show you these systems and they sell you on the fact that this new system is out. Everybody should own one. It's so easy. It's so simple. Guys, it's not that simple. You would never see any posts in a forum. Think about it. Forum is the most general way for people to assume they can get help. Why do we see so many posts? Because that's where they hang out. They're not telling you how great their machine is running. You know how many posts you see for that? So really think about what you're doing. Look at a system like this and ask yourself, am I ready to really take this on? Am I ready to make this investment, not sit it on the shelf for 6 months because, you know, this is I'm in way over my head? And I've seen guys do it. I want to sell everybody a system that they're happy with. I want to sell a system that's going to make them money. That's my goal. Making small businesses work, I love it. Okay, it's not just a robot, it's automating a small business. But here's the big kicker. I don't want to sell to somebody who's not motivated enough to understand what they're getting involved with. And I'm grateful to see someone finish a project like this from start to finish and take it, like I said, regardless of my components, whatever components it may be, take some of my knowledge to make his life a little easier and go through, take his time, and again, really do his best. He was very humble when he showed me these pictures. The big thing here is that Matt is building this for himself. He did everything for himself with passion, and that's what's really important, is that you understand it. You understand what you're getting involved with. You're able to work on your system yourself if that's what you're going to tackle, and go from there. You know, as a vendor myself, I do build the hardware. I do sell the components. I do charge additional fees if I have to teach people software. If I have to go in and, other than give basic settings, I have to charge for that. There's no way around it. But these are the things that many of you, I feel, do forget to take that into account, because we look at what's online and we are always hearing how easy things are. It's not as easy as that. Believe me. Again, Matt's a mechanical engineer. This man put this together and still had questions. Was it due to lack of education? No. It's due to just learning, the learning process. It just is what it is. And that's why I say to you, when I hear guys telling me their background, they tell me everything. I've heard everything under the sun. If you haven't done this, a project of this caliber, you're hot air. You've got to do it to understand it. And then once you understand it, it's like, wow. You know, first thing Matt told me is I have a whole different level of respect for what you do. And it's true, because it's like me saying that for him. If I went to his job, I'd have to see it and experience it to really understand it. So again, I hope that this video has enlightened you on a system well done. We see the GX16s, like I said, everything here is done so that he was able to go in, service the system, and on top of that, all the wires and everything are filtered. We have our grounds done. He has a ground going to the chassis. I mean, this is a very, very simple setup, and it gets the job done. The final icing on the cake, so to speak, will him be mounting his inputs and whatever other additional GX16s to support whatever accessories he has for the system. So hats off to Matt. He did a great job. And once again, I hope you guys learned something, at least to ask yourself some of the questions that I've brought to light, because I feel that many vendors don't do this. They're not going to do this. It's going to hurt their sales in the long run, because some guys are going to say, hey, you know what, this is just too much for me. I really want to look into it. This is also why I push dealing with an integrated drive system, because an integrated drive system, once again, you look at all these leads, the power supplies, the breakout board, the Ethernet controller. You got how many drives here, then we have all these terminal splitters, all of this, the EMI filter, wiring all the GX16s. It can go on and on and on, and he's not even done with the GX16s for whatever additional accessories he needs. That's why an integrated drive system like a G540 system, they're my hottest seller. And that's why, because they're simple, they're effective, they're not for everyone. Matt wanted to do an IDS system. He's got a lot of different benefits with this system, but it's definitely not a novice system, not at all. And I don't classify now him at all as a novice. This is far beyond that. He's definitely went up in rank just experiencing this. You know, and again, like I said, when everybody experiences this level of build capacity, they realize exactly what they've gotten into. So again, guys, I hope that this video has been helpful. And again, I hope that all of your questions have been answered in terms of looking at a system that I didn't build. And I get told a lot, you guys always pointing out that you know, the spot the knot and showing us vendor systems. This is a client's past system, and I think he did a fantastic job. Again, if you have questions, require quotes, consultations, whatever it may be, you can message me direct at storm2313@gmail.com. You can also message me through my eBay store. You'll see links in the beginning of the video and at the end. I hope that this video has been helpful and at least made you think a little bit more. Thank you. Take care.